Japanese people never saw any reason to translate it for liturgical purposes. They never got this idea, this literalist idea that you need to know word for word what you're meaning as you chant. You get the gist of it. So we almost always have this bit in Pali. We chant usually in Tang Dynasty clerical Chinese. We often include a song in Japanese, as we did today, Shinshu Shuka. I know some people get tired of the old songs, but this is one I really like, and we really want to keep, because I was mentioning to Wim that twice I was in Japan where I just walked into somewhere and they were doing this song that I knew. It was in Yamaguchi-ken, I was in Onoda City, and the radio taisho, they call it, even though it's seldom on the radio, but the morning exercise, all the kids lined up, and then they, after doing the exercise, they sang Shinshu Shuka. And it just made me feel good that I could sing along and that I knew the lyrics and that I knew the song. One time I walked, in 1996, in November, I walked past Higashi Honganji on the way to Nishi Honganji, and they were having their honko service, and they were chanting honko. I mean, they were chanting hondoku-san, singing hondoku-san. And that just really made me feel good and included, you know. I felt like I'm not a foreigner, I know this song. Some people here don't know the lyrics, and I know this song. So it's nice to know something they're sometimes called in the text, whereas we more often use the metaphor, the three treasures of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And the Buddha is any person who has awoken thoroughly to the deep oneness of all life. And we focus on the Buddha here more, most especially, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. You can always come to the study classes, we talk about this stuff a lot. But again, a Buddha is anyone, any one of us, any person, any man, woman, child, perhaps well an animal. We haven't found a Buddha animal on earth yet, but we may yet well. We really might. It's not about species. It's not species specific. The Sangha, jumping ahead to the third term, is the community of all those who try to live in terms of the deep vision. I was going to point out that Sangha, I think I have it later in the notes, but originally the term meant the monks and nuns. So why do you take refuge in the Sangha? You take refuge in the Buddha because the Buddha is awoken and knows the truth. You take refuge in the Dharma because that's what we're awakening to, reality itself, or the deep reality of our lives. Why do we take refuge in the Sangha? The view on this changed about 2,400 years ago, 2,400 years ago. And the original reason was because the Sangha meant the monks and nuns, and they had the knowledge and the techniques, and so you could rely on them. But as soon as Mahayana developed out of Mahasangika, and we're as old as anything, you know, it is not true that Theravada is older. Theravada developed out of the Stavina. Mahayana developed out of Mahasangika. Buddhism was diverse from its origins, from its first century. But by the time we got Mahayana, which is probably about 150 years after the Buddha's passing, we mean by the Sangha everybody. That's what it's meant since the 3rd century before the Common Era. Everybody is part of our community, part of our Sangha. But then another 500 years later, by the 3rd century, as Mahayana developed, we went beyond that even. So we don't even just mean everybody by the Sangha. We mean every living thing. We mean the Dharma, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Buddha, anyone who's awoken to the truth. Sangha, every living thing, because we support one another in this quest for truth, for realness, for awakening. And the Dharma, in its primary meaning, also Dharma, as I mentioned, in books, you pick up Buddhist books, you'll sometimes see the word Dharma used like the Japanese word koto, meaning just an abstract term for a thing. That's only in philosophical analysis, it's very seldom used that way. It usually means either the teachings that unveil the Dharma, the teachings and practices that point to awakening for us, that lead us down the path to Buddhahood. And it means, as I mentioned last week, usually translated as truth, but I think better reality. The Dharma is the reality that we are trying to awaken to. Back 25 years ago, I was at IBS, and I started as a student that was, in many ways, like me, part of the 60s generation, Ken Schultz, from a podunk town in the middle of San Joaquin Valley. He won the Bakersfield, one of the few places I heard in the graduate program. He was a student of Robert Aitken, Zen Roshi, and Aitken Roshi, who passed away earlier this year, if memory serves, within the last calendar year. Aitken Roshi had encouraged him to go to our graduate school seminary at Berkeley, the Student Buddhist Studies. He'd sent several of his Zen students there. But Ken didn't stay, but he said something one time. He said that Buddhism is a religion of reality. And what struck me is I like that because on one hand it's very clumsy. This is the kind of thing you get from a graduate of Bakersfield Tech. You know, people from Columbia don't talk that way. People from Harvard don't talk that way. You know, Buddhism is a religion of reality. But they reminded me of that line, that John Lennon line that I often quote from I Am the Walrus. I am he as you are he, as you are me, as we are all together. You know? Now John knew that that was clumsy. And he also knew that if what you're saying is that we're all one, you shouldn't have to say it in a sophisticated way, because it includes everybody else. I am he as you are. We have this reverent feeling, this respect that theists have for their God. We have this respect for reality itself. Reality. All of reality is sacred. This reality that we all share is what we fundamentally mean by the Dharma. And the Dharma is one of the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Again, the Sangha is all of us. You're all a member of the Sangha. And the Buddhist community, or Sangha, is then very diverse. And so, as I mentioned, on an average Sunday here at the temple, we use 4 languages. The defunct, scholastic, ancient Indian language of Pali, which we use for Vedanta Tisanana, Chinese, classical Tang Dynasty clerical Chinese, which is what almost all of our sutra chanting is in. We usually work in a little Japanese, as when we sang Shinshu Shuka earlier. And the language I'm speaking right now, which is almost surely English. Our Sangha is diverse, and is diverse. And although we are of various ethnicities and various cultural backgrounds, as we engage with the Jodo Shinshu school of Buddhism, we become involved, or more deeply involved, with Japanese culture. Some of you remember we had a seminar, a public talk panel discussion about 5 years ago with Rabbi Joseph Wolf that we called Buddhist-Jewish Solidarity. And what Rabbi Wolf said was that Judaism is not an ethnicity. Being Jewish is not an ethnicity, but it is both a religion and a culture. I think we have a similar thing here that Jodo Shinshu Buddhism does not require that we are of any certain culture, but as we continue to participate, we realize how deeply Jodo Shinshu Buddhism was originally rooted in Japan. You know, we don't all have time to budget to deeply study various cultures, but if you have time, you might want to learn a little more about Japanese culture, and that's why also I was very pleased last night we had Sami Tachibana's dance troupe here. And you know, it's, my impression was a little bit more classical and less folk than some years. Very high level last night, and very good performances. And you know, we had Yoshiko Kamata, who was incredibly, she was strong and graceful. She does those things on one leg that you can't believe that she's not going to, she doesn't wobble at all. You know, we had her daughter, Hazuki Kamata Beka, the Kanaage sisters, Akemi and Angela Kanaage. Kimi Kimura, she's one I don't know as well. I didn't remember her. Of course, Win Kiyama and Ann Shintani did a great job. Kelly Takahashi, Tara Tamaraguchi Gibbs, no relation, kind of loyal member of our temple, and Joy Uzuriha, who we've all kind of enjoyed growing up, and it's amazing. You know, I got here 10 years ago. Hey, you remember? Funny thing about Joy, she didn't walk, right? She was like